there's obviously a connection between advocating for things and having formative experiences. It's been, you know, this is cliche and I'm not the first one to say it, but again, you can't really get motivated to do something unless you have a personal connection to a landscape or an activity that you stand to lose. I wish that we had, I think, more of a mindset as a culture where we just can't squander things. And it's not taking money out of your pocket to care about the health of a river or an ecosystem. My name is Karl Boothman, and I am a senior policy advisor in the Clean Energy Program working on Utah state policy. I think I first became aware of the environment pretty young. I was lucky enough to grow up in Michigan, which is defined kind of by its water and its woods. There's so much wonder in Michigan forests and in Michigan lakes and rivers. And my dad introduced me to canoeing and fly fishing from a pretty early age. I didn't grow up necessarily in a very outdoorsy family, but we always grew up going to northern Michigan, where my dad, would always take me fishing and canoeing.
And an awning, and I took both of them off because I was worried about fitting in a parking garage.
So I grew up playing a lot of team sports. I played hockey my whole life. I played soccer, baseball, and then I played rugby in high school and in college for the University of Michigan. In college, that was my main focus as well as school, was playing rugby for the University of Michigan. By my junior and senior year, it was pretty clear that I had had too many concussions to keep playing contact sports. And that was really a defining moment for me, that realization, because it meant that I couldn't keep doing the things that, defined my community and I had defined myself by. And I had to look for other sources of peace and tranquility and other interests and passions around me. So by my senior year, I had enough credits to take half-time second semester senior year. I took an ecology of fishes class, and I kind of rediscovered my love for fly fishing. I started fly fishing when I was 8 years old, but it was always in between hockey tournaments, rugby road trips, etc. But when I couldn't do any of those things anymore, I turned back to the rivers in Michigan and really kind of found, peace and a different outlet.
My wife's like really getting into rowing now.
Nice.
So this year's the first time that I've fished.
Yeah, so I would say the North Woods of Michigan that's really the place that shaped me. It's customary in Michigan, if you're from downstate, you go up north, and once you cross past a little town called Clare, the woods change into kind of this combination boreal forest, pine forest, and once you get there, everyone kind of just breathes a sigh of relief. Northern Michigan has incredible fly fishing. We have more coastline in Michigan than any state besides Alaska. The Great Lakes are 100,000 miles almost of surface fresh water. It's really just an incredible place, and it means so much to me to be back there on trout streams deep in the cedar swamps in the forests of northern Michigan. My girlfriend at the time, now my wife, she took a job with a very tiny backpacking tent company in Nevada City, California. So I ended up going with her because why move out west if you're not chasing a girl out west? And what both of us thought was going to be a year of living there and then maybe moving to a big city or moving home to Michigan turned into over 5 years in Northern California in the Tahoe region. through that time, we made so many friends. We ended up with a phenomenal community. We started skiing and mountain biking, backcountry skiing, and I obviously explored a lot of the rivers out in California and that region for fly fishing. And it really just, it was like nothing I had ever experienced before. So I went home for months every summer because I want to maintain that connection to my home state, but the West has really become our home.
Burn scar is impressive. It reminds me of what kind of ran us out of California was the repeated mega fires. I can't imagine the air quality impacts of this one, but also, I mean, these are the climate impacts on the things that I love. You can see all the tall trees around the stream that keeps the water cool in the dead of summer are gone. It's a natural part of the...
For me, it was all about water. In the Great Lakes, like I said, water defines anyone who's from there. Even visitors are just, they can't believe the difference between being out west and being in the Great Lakes region. But I became aware of this environmental issue in the Great Lakes, and there's a 60-plus-year-old aging crude oil pipeline sitting on the bottom of the Straits of Mackinac. And the Straits of Mackinac are where Lake Michigan and Lake Huron are connected. It's technically actually one lake, but they call them two different lakes. And the flow of water between the Straits of Mackinac carries more water than the Mississippi River on a daily basis. And there was this crude oil pipeline, and still is a crude oil pipeline sitting bare on the bottom of the Great Lakes. And that, to me, and to a lot of people who became aware of this issue, just was a personal affront to our culture growing up in the upper Great Lakes region. An oil spill in that area, ruptured pipeline, an anchor drag over the pipeline would mean disaster for the economies of northern Michigan, for the reputation of Michigan as the Great Lakes state. A degree in economics and a minor in environmental studies, which turns out to be a pretty good background for this kind of work. But my first job out of college was in economic consulting in regulatory economics and antitrust issues. And I found it to be incredibly interesting from an academic and economics point of view. That job really, I was able to build a lot of skills in that job. I worked as an analyst alongside PhD economists, preparing testimony, writing discovery questions, learning how really economics factors into legal cases. And I really then figured out that I could use my economics background, the quantitative skills that I had, the writing skills that I had, and apply that to issues that meant a little bit more to me. And so after 4 years in antitrust consulting and regulatory economics, I quit my job. I moved into a backpacking tent that actually was the first tent that my wife designed at her job. And I lived in the forest on a farm in northern Michigan, paying no rent and biking 18 miles into Traverse City to volunteer for a water law and policy nonprofit, where I was able to put my existing skills to use on issues that really, really meant something to me deeply. Yeah, so the path to WRA was pretty serendipitous. So after living in my tent for 4 months and volunteering at the water law and policy nonprofit in Michigan, one of the board members tried to poach me from that, and it worked. And I owe him a lot. He recognized my background. He also had a background in economics and other environmental studies. And he asked if I wanted to come work in energy policy and water policy. That firm was called 5 Lakes Energy. And I told him, at the end of the summer, in about 3 weeks, I'm moving to California, so I'm not sure it'll work out. He happened to say, we've been thinking of adding an analyst for a while now and growing our firm a little bit. It was very small. I ended up working for them for, I think, over 5 years as well, through the entire time that I was living in California, and I was working primarily on Great Lakes energy issues. I also gained a lot of skills and experience in the energy policy world and regulatory world in general. So after 5 years or so, it was a great experience working with them. Like I said, I owe Douglas and the entire Five Lakes Energy team a lot. My wife and my wife's friend even had seen a posting for the senior policy advisor position in Utah for WRA. And I looked at the job description, and it turned out that what they were looking for in terms of qualifications was kind of my resume to a T. So it seemed like a natural fit. I applied, and I immediately, liked WRA's commitment to just common sense policy and science-based policy. And from there, it's been great.
Oh, robbery.
I remember my dad at one point saying, if you're not actively making the world a better place, you might be making it a worse place. And that really stuck with me. Both of my older sisters work in fields that really benefit, just people in general. When he said that kind of stuck with me. He was always very committed to being of service to people. And frankly, my attention hasn't been held by anything that I wasn't personally invested in or interested in. So that's one reason. I think the other reason is kind of like my background playing sports, hockey and rugby mainly. I was never motivated as much by winning as I was by my hatred of losing. And I think that translates a lot into our work that we do at WRA because of things. There's so much inertia and industry behind policies as they stand right now that we are, advocating for common sense environmental policy is an uphill battle. So it's not that feeling of winning, a big case in front of the Public Service Commission or passing really positive legislation. It's just that I really hate seeing bad policies enacted because that affects more people than I think anyone's aware of. And I think that, the work that we do is it's just genuine and it comes from a good place. And I just hate losing more than I like winning.
I legitimately will walk for an hour if I need to.
I think a lot gives me hope
from the trailhead or from the car.
Yeah, just to not.
And it almost never comes from the work directly, but it comes from the times that I have in-depth conversations with people that I know, I may not share a lot of things in common with. To be honest, I'm not sure that I have ever identified myself as an environmental advocate necessarily. I think what drew me to environmental policy in particular was the fact that I couldn't understand why it was ever a partisan issue. The air quality is such a huge issue in the Salt Lake Valley and in the northern Wasatch Front in general. And everyone can be on board with that, right? That's a nonpartisan issue in Salt Lake. One side of the political spectrum doesn't own conservation. I think that's the biggest takeaway to me. And so you talk to people, you have these conversations on a bar stool or on the river or, at my beer league hockey games. And I talk about what I do, and I have really tried to always put it in perspective of what other people care about. And if you have those long form discussions with people, rather than anything, posted digitally, you never come away from those discussions in a screaming match where you're arguing nonstop. It's always what has formed their beliefs about the world. And I can't remember a conversation about the work that we do where it hasn't been, I haven't learned from something from them, and they haven't learned something from me. And we've ended, with the handshake, leaving the bar stool, and that's a big perk of what I do at WRA. So, like I said, for me, it's not an activism thing. It's just, putting my head down every day, trying to work hard, trying to find policies that benefit everyone, and leave no one behind. I think those are things that people from all backgrounds and all political stripes can really relate to.